and the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, then why not every man? Oh, did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? Then why not every man? Oh, then why not every man? Then why not?
Christians, it's time for the church to come together and address the most pressing issues of the day.
The AND Campaign is a coalition of urban, biblical Christians who believe it's time to rethink our tone, posture, and overall strategy when it comes to cultural and civic engagement.
The AND Campaign is about living out the compassion and the conviction of Jesus Christ. It's about both social justice and biblical values.
The truth of the matter is, traditionally, urban Christians haven't fit in comfortably with either side of the political or ideological spectrum. We haven't fit in with the right because historically they have rejected civil rights and they lack compassion. And we haven't fit in with the left either, even though people don't talk about it as much, because many of them have rejected classic values. But at the same time, we know that we have to be engaged in the most pressing issues of our day, whether it be mass incarceration or sanctity of life. We have to be involved, and we have to be involved faithfully.
For too long, we've allowed other people to tell our stories. We've allowed politics, academia, and entertainment to inform our faith when we believe it should be the other way around. What does it look like for Christians to engage politics, academia, and entertainment for the glory of God?
While we're caring for people and loving people the way God tells us to, we got to make sure that we don't hold back from the standards that God has given us in His Word.
The AND Campaign wants to make sure that our movement is thoughtful about women's issues, and we want to affirm a biblical ideology of womanhood.
Have you ever felt too progressive for conservatives, but yet too conservative for liberals? At the AND Campaign, we're not trying to create a third party. You could rock with us and be a Democrat, or you could rock with us and be a Republican. We want to emphasize that Christians should transcend partisanship and ideology and come together on the core issues.
Right now, the AND Campaign is in our outreach and awareness phase of the organization. This is a very important phase because a group of people who are not organized and are not aware cannot be effective in the public square.
We're in the process of creating AND Campaign chapters all across the country. We're looking at 8 major cities right now, and we need your help. Please let us know what church you go to, connect us to your churches, connect us to your faith-based organizations, because we would love to partner with you. Now, if you want to connect with us, email us, engage@theandcampaign.com.
AND Campaign, the future of Christian cultural and civic engagement.
How you guys doing today? Good, good. I am excited to have this time to get a chance to talk to both Justin and Bithia. This is the final week of our All Things New Restoration series, where our goal was the recovery and pursuit for God's original design for holistic health. And so we're going to end off today with this idea of social. And Justin, you talked about the idea of both speaking the truth in love, and that's kind of the idea you talked about how the AND Campaign started. Share a little bit about the AND Campaign and a little bit more about that, and after just hearing that video.
Yeah, so to add to what the video was saying is basically it's a reaction to the fact that we see within our political landscape that once Christians enter, they feel like they have to go all the way to the left and all the way to the right. And we feel like when you go all the way to the right, then you are sacrificing some of your compassion. When you go all the way to the left, there are certain things on the left and principles and Christian beliefs that you can't take with you. And so you kind of surrender those to your political party or ideological tribe. And we thought that was causing Christians not to be faithful in the public square, that we need to have biblical fidelity in our civic engagement and within our discourse. And we just weren't seeing it. We also saw even a lot of Christian influencers who were now becoming more politically engaged just weren't doing it within a biblical framework. And so other people were kind of following them outside of that biblical framework. And so we wanted to create a framework, create a movement, an on-ramp for Christians to engage in a way that was faithful.
Amen. Remember, this is an open dialogue, and so if you have questions, text to the number and to the screen upstairs, up on the screen, and you'll be able to get some questions being answered. We also have one of our own covenant members, Bithia. And Bithia, tell her a little bit about you, yourself, what you do, and just kind of your love for this topic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bithia Ratnasamy. I've been a member here at Blueprint for the past 6 or so months. I've been in Atlanta for the past year and a half, but have kind of hopped around back and forth. I currently work as a senior housing policy analyst for the state of Georgia, Department of Community Affairs, and work on special projects and legislative affairs focused on affordable housing and community development. Before that, I've been a...
Is the longer your title, the more important you are? Is that all? That was all of your title?
No. The title is just Senior Housing Policy Analyst, but
Okay.
it's not very descriptive.
Okay, good.
I've also been a fellow with the Atlanta Beltline and worked with CARES Community Housing in South Atlanta as well, and worked in local politics in Phoenix. So
Talk a little bit about your love for what you're doing, the love for the city, and even engagement when it comes to this.
Yeah, I think the built environment, the city, the spaces that we live in are really a manifestation of who we are as a people and what our values are. And so I'm really fascinated by how, who shapes cities and how we experience them. Thinking about Jeremiah, the Lord talking to his people and talking about seek the shalom of the city has been a verse that he's really laid heavy on my heart, and what it looks like to actively do that kind of work in a way that creates dignity for all people.
So, Justin, as we talk about seeking the shalom for the city, is there a certain limit to the amount of things that the church specifically should engage in? And when we talk about the church, one of the questions was specifically, should the church address climate change?
Yeah, I mean, I think creation care is very important. And so let me put it this way. There are certain things that the Bible speaks to fairly directly. And in that, the church, I think, should speak into those, whether it be sanctity of life or whatever. The church can speak into those. There are some things that aren't spoken to as directly. And so you got to watch the church get into situations where the Bible hasn't given us that more direct kind of guidance. I think we run into trouble when we do that. And it's not that individual Christians can't have an opinion on those things, but sometimes it is a matter of opinion. And so I think Christians need to be aware of that. But the church should be engaged. I mean, to me, it is part of the Great Commandment. It is part of loving your neighbor to use politics as a tool to advocate for your neighbor's well-being. And that's really all it should be. It should not be an ultimate thing. And I was saying this the other day, we had an event in Chicago where, with my ministry, with the intersection in faith and politics, I'm trying to tell people that politics is important as far as I said before, helping our neighbors, but that it's not all important, that it's not an ultimate thing. And at that point, when we make an ultimate thing, we hand to Caesar what belongs to God.
So when you talk about Christians getting engaged, in the social climate, you said people are getting more involved and more engaged. How has that journey been, all the way from getting us simply to vote or, just things of that nature? How hard or how easy has that been?
It can be tough. God has been faithful, and so we have grown faster than we expected to grow. But because we don't side with one side or the other, we get hit from both sides. And so you have some Christians that say, man, I love how you guys talk about social justice. Do we have to talk about that moral order stuff? And then you have some people who love the moral order and biblical values and don't want to talk about the social justice. Well, we love you, but our whole thing is both of them. And if you don't have both of them, maybe we can partner on certain things or whatever, but the AND campaign is really about the importance of compassion and conviction and not one or the other. We see an imbalance if one of those is absent.
Yeah, Bithia, Justin talks about the idea of both compassion and conviction. How in what you're doing for the city, how do you see that that intersecting as a whole?
Yeah, compassion and conviction, it is a hard balance. Working within government, it can be frustrating hearing a lot of people talk about just the slowness or inefficiency of working in a system like that, but really feeling called into that kind of space and being a light in a really hard place like that, I think is important. With that, it looks like using my 40 to 50 hours a week to do work that serves those in need of basic shelter. And I think that's something that as Christians we often forget, that there are people with just basic needs like that. But also yeah, just doing life fully in that way, and still having the strength beyond those 40 hours a week to still go home and love my actual neighbors too, and only being able to do that through Christ's strength.
That's good.
Yeah, you talked about the idea of, you said you kind of put emphasis on actual neighbors. How do you balance the tension between systemic, to some degree doesn't have a face, and personal? And that could be to either one of you. Dealing with both systemic things and then also the personal.
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of both, and I was telling somebody this the other day. A lot of what I do is kind of high level in that it's broad, but at the same time, when you're doing that more high level systemic stuff, you don't automatically see the differences. And somebody was saying to me, well, I don't see any change in what I'm doing. I'm saying, well, sometimes you just got to go to the neighborhood level and get a mentor, a mentee, and just see the change that you can make in their life. And so I think when you can, you have to try to do both, because I think it keeps you balanced, and it's necessary.
Yeah, I would second that. I think when you're in the full-time work, it is easy to just go home and want to turn off. And so for me, it's finding organizations in my neighborhood. It's talking to the people who live down the hallway from me and loving them well. Working to build relationships with people at the local businesses in my neighborhood. Yeah, it can look like so many different things.
So how does someone out here that may be apathetic to it, is it's like, regardless of what president, regardless of what governor or legislator, it don't seem like anything is going to change either way. How do you help someone who's been apathetic to engaging in this way to become more engaging?
I think in Atlanta there are so many ways. So there's neighborhood associations across the city. With the Beltline going on right now, there's been a whole community engagement process around that. So if you have questions about gentrification or the process of a large development project happening, go to their website. They have tons of meetings all the time. Get plugged in with those. There's school boards. There's PTAs. There's so many different opportunities right in your backyard. And so, yeah, I would encourage you. They might just be once-a-month meetings. It might be joining a steering committee for something. It really might just be sitting on your front porch and talking to people who pass by and loving them through that direct relationship, too.
Yeah, and I would say because we have an obligation to do it. We have an obligation to be socially concerned. And so whether your site can see the difference that it's making or not, or whether you think it's going to make a difference, that's what you're supposed to do. Sometimes we get so caught up in, is it making a difference? Am I reaching? No. You do it anyway, right? It reminds me, I think it was Isaiah, when he got his commission, he was like, well, how long do I have to do this, Lord? And I was like, do it until everything's ruined. It doesn't matter. I said, do it. Right? And that's part of the obedience of just doing it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Also, can I add something? Read the local news. Your state and local politics matter a lot, too. Knowing who you're putting into office at those levels, that has more direct impact in a lot of ways, or not more, but as much impact on your day-to-day life as federal politics do. And it might not feel as juicy or dramatic, but what the city looks like is a direct impact of what city council, zoning, all of that kind of work is happening. So support a report, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, recommend giving those some time as well.
Yeah. For some of them, they may believe that this is not a gospel issue. What would you say to those pundits?
I would say, well, it's not the primary gospel issue, right? We know that professing the gospel is the primary thing we're supposed to do. But once you have faith and you believe in Jesus, it is the fruit of faith, right? You want to do what's right. And so once you've accepted Jesus into your heart, there should be an urge to try to help people and to try to do things. So we see it as the fruit of that. While it may not be the primary thing leads us towards, it compels us towards civic engagement and engaging our community.
Someone asked in here, you talked about moral order. Can you describe that a little bit or unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. When I talk about moral order, you can talk about the Christian family ethic. You can talk about the Christian sexual ethic, how we engage with that, with identity issues and things of that nature. And when you're dealing with because, I think in a lot of ways, like the moral majority and religious right dealt with only moral order. And you saw a harshness to it. And so one thing that the AND campaign tries to say is they might not have been wrong on everything. We don't have to throw out everything that they said, but if they did it the wrong way and there was no compassion, then they got it wrong. And so what we're trying to say, we're not going to throw out biblical principles because somebody did it wrong. We're going to add the compassion to it and do it in the right way.
Let's get Bithia. Talk a little bit about nuance You know, he kind of referred to that. You don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's nuance. There may be a policy or something that's going on that you may not holistically accept, but there are nuances to it, you know, that you are accepting. How do you not throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to some of these public policies that there is some good, but there also are some bad? I mean, how do you engage or address those types of issues?
I think this is where, like in Micah 6, it just talks about walking humbly with your God. It really comes in where it's not about you. It's not about you being 100% right. It's not about how people perceive you, but it's really thinking about what the end is, and if it is just ultimately. There's pros and cons with everything. Everything's a cost-benefit analysis in my head in some ways. But yeah, just sometimes you do have to separate that out, and it's hard. It takes a lot of thoughtfulness. It's not something you're going to arrive at within 30 seconds. Like I think the Gulch development, if anybody followed that story, downtown was really big, where it's like there's this huge opportunity to light up this whole area of downtown that's been abandoned for some times, but there's hurt that comes with that. Or the Beltline is a really good example, this really great tool for connecting people, but it has these implications to it too. And so how do we say, this is a good project, it has a lot of potential, but we have to like break out these little pieces of it and be thoughtful, which isn't easy. It's hard work. It takes asking questions. There's humility required in that, and being patient with a process and understanding that there's a lot of moving pieces that is like we never really know the whole story a lot of times. Did that answer that?
That's true.
No.
No, it did. It was good. I just want to give you that awkward pause. But Justin, you talked about in the video talked about the 8 different chapters here. How do you get involved with the local chapter in Atlanta in some of these social issues?
Yeah, sure. Well, you can reach out, but since this guy's on the leadership council, you can always reach out to your pastor. But no, you can go to engage at ancampaign.org, and we'll get you involved. We have a local Atlanta chapter. We'll be throwing forums. One of the things we did recently in Chicago, actually last Monday, was we threw a mayoral forum in Chicago. So the Chicago's mayor's race is one of the biggest races in 2019. We got 50 plus churches together in the Chicago area and through a forum called Faith and Politics, where our first round of questions were all about faith. Then we talked about crime, we talked about those other things, but what we were showing them was that faith was important to us and that we were going to hold them accountable for what they said and that the Christian community was together. You'll see some of those type of things come into Atlanta, and we need all the help we can get. The AND campaign is nothing if the people in the pews don't come along and help us out. And so we invite people to come in. If you're about social justice and moral order and you understand how those things work together, we'd love to have you.
One final question, and then again, starting next week, we're going to be answering all the questions throughout this whole, throughout all 4 weeks. We'll be start doing blogs and releasing different things for all the questions that have been asked. But one last question for both of you guys to answer. How do you speak the truth in love without making the world think we are pushing Christianity down their throats? Bithia, you would like to go?
Okay.
Oh, Bithia's laterally.
Well, it's the way you go about it. We are not trying to create a theocracy. And so every tenet in the Bible, I'm not saying that everybody in America has to live by that tenet. But there are certain things that if we articulate it in the right way, you articulate it in a way that shows these biblical principles actually are for human flourishing. They help you too. And so I'm not pushing anything down your throat. I'm merely saying that to live this way or to do these certain things or to care about people a certain way is helpful to society as a whole. I don't want you to have to be a Christian if you don't want to be a Christian. That's not even how it works, right? Like we can't force you to do it. And so that's not what we're trying to do. And I think in the past we have done that. We're just merely saying this is we don't want a theocracy, but as far as we have influence, we want those Christian principles to be set forth for human flourishing.
What Justin said.
No, working in the public sector, it's a little bit different because I do have to be really careful with speaking about my faith in that work setting specifically. But I think it really is, just how we treat people, how we engage people with love. People can see that, and it really speaks a lot about who Christ is and how we engage with other people. And I think working in housing and planning kind of spaces, I don't feel like I have to like say Jesus for people to understand that like this is to uplift those who have been pushed to the sides. This is to give voice to those who have been silenced, for people to like really easily, not always, but rally around that and understand that it is for like the peace of the city.
One more question, Bithia. We're about to move into a series called Encounter, and you know, it's kind of a continuation. And as we seek to see Jesus encountered, what is one of the ways, or what are some of the ways that you, in a place that has, in a lot of ways, has muzzled you, you know, you said being in the government spaces, that you do ministry where life exists? So just give us one way that you bring your Christianity into a workplace that has muzzled the idea of speaking the name of Christ.
Mm-hmm. So one way that has looked, there was a conversation I was in a few months ago. It was really hard, and I like totally caught myself just being an arrogant jerk. And I stopped the conversation and apologized. Just took a minute to say, I'm so sorry. That was not loving of me at all, and I should not have said what I just said. And I apologize and hope you'll accept that, because that's not who I am. That's not who I was created to be. And just that moment, my coworker was like, wait a second, who does that? What's happening right now? How do I even respond? Was a really cool opportunity to just like show how radically different we're called to live as believers, and to die to ourselves, in ways like that.
Amen. Thank you. The question is why don't more Christians identify as believers in the public sector?
Because I think there's, you know, not everybody likes that, right? It can make it harder, right? If you go into a certain profession, sometimes whether it's the medical profession or whatever, or a lot of times in academia in general, to identify as a Christian is going to have people looking at you crazy. And when you're trying to achieve as much as you can, you don't want anything kind of holding you back. But what I always say is that there's no replacement for Christian courage. So at the end of the day, you have to trust God enough to say, I have to be courageous through this and represent who I'm supposed to be. Because you never know who's around you that's kind of on the fence that will say, wow, they did it, now I can do it. And that's one of the things I noticed with the AND campaign. It started with a group called Crucifix and Politics, which was a group of politicos that I knew who were Christians. Once we came together a couple times, I noticed that when we were out other places, people would speak up more because they knew now that they weren't alone. They knew that there are other people around them that agreed with them. And I say, you have to be courageous. Christian courage will always be important, and there is no substitute for it. And so we just have to be courageous in that regard.
Talking about the AND campaign, you mentioned in the video that there's 8 chapters around. If someone wanted to say, I would love to get involved with the AND campaign here, the local chapter, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so first you could email us at engage@andcampaign.org, engage@andcampaign.org. Let us know you want to get engaged, and we'll, invite you out to one of our chapter meetings, and so you can kind of see what it's about. One of the main things that we tell people, we really want people to get, we are about social justice and biblical values. We have some people that are like, man, I love the social justice stuff. Do we have to talk about that biblical values? Yes, we do. And the same other thing, people like the biblical values don't want to talk about the social justice, but we think those things go together, and we're reclaiming the definitions of those. So forget about the definitions that you hear out in the street. We want a biblical definition of those things.
What qualifications do you need to join?
That's really it. I mean, to be a professing Christian and to believe in that framework.
Okay. Last question that you both can answer, and then again we'll answer the rest of the questions that we did not get to via online in one of the mediums then. What obstacles have you faced in the last few weeks, and how have you seized opportunities in the midst of them? That could be conversations, policies, whatever. So what some recent examples that you faced, and how have you seized them, those opportunities in the midst? You talked about a conversation that you had with a coworker. Maybe that's one.
Can do that. A few weeks ago, I had a really tough conversation with a coworker in which I got really defensive and really arrogant. and just did not speak kindly to her. And so I like caught myself in that moment, just was like really felt the Holy Spirit convict me and was able to pause the conversation and just apologize and humbly say, I'm so sorry. I did not love, like that was not a loving thing to do, and this is not who I want to be. This is not who I was created to be, and so I apologize for speaking to you like that and for being arrogant, and hope you'll accept that. And that itself just sparked a conversation because my coworker was like, what? Who like stops a conversation and is like, that was kind of weird, but cool, I appreciate you recognizing that. And that's opened a door for some conversations.
And not to force feed you that answer, is there any other that you would like to share?
Yeah,
okay.
We can do that. I mean, we have a new governor right now, so working for a state department where there's like uncertainty with what's going to happen with affordable housing. I won't get political, but it's, yeah, just kind of a time where coworkers don't really know what's going on. With the federal government, we don't know what funding's going to look like. So there's just a lot of stress and anxiety in the air. And so being able to love people and to just like have his peace has been, it's, I think, showed a lot of people that I get my strength from somewhere bigger, someone bigger. And so, yeah, being in the public sector is really different because there's so many factors that affect us. But I think just being able to still love people and show up to work with an attitude of joy and service has been something that I've really processed the past few weeks.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, I can't think of anything the last couple weeks, but I will say just generally, because we don't fit with kind of either side, especially on social media, we always get hit from one side or the other, for both sides, really. And so what we try to do is be very, number one, humble, but be very clear that, like, don't put the stereotype of the other side on us just because you disagree with what we said. There's a lot more to what we have to say, and just trying to invite people in, send them articles, send them videos that we've done, send them sermons maybe that we've done to explain to them this is what we're really about. Some people still reject it, but it's taking the time to have a conversation in a way where we're not trying to have clapback all the time, right? It's actually saying, no, let's have a conversation, and so you can see what we're really about.
Amen. Give these two a hand. We appreciate your willingness.